Most people talk the way that they text. You notice, especially people who are born after the year 2000. They tend to speak how they text because when you communicate on these devices, it's different. It's very quick. You don't necessarily have to process anything, not too much. You don't necessarily have to use tone in a certain fashion. You don't have to recognize tone. You don't have to do that with text. So then, no wonder people can't tell the difference between humor, sarcasm, a threat, a compliment, a joke. People can't tell the difference between those things because with text talk, you don't need to. And really, the emoji is used to provide that, but that doesn't really give it all because there's tone. You know what I mean? When you hear the tone of my voice, if we're having a conversation, you and I, then you know if I'm joking or not, or at least hopefully you will, if you can read it well. I come from Gen X. We knew the difference. Gen X and before, and older millennials too, know the difference. And some of you that were born in the 2000s know the difference as well. Your parents taught you very well. But communication, the lost art form, the idea of using both sides of yourself, because there's two sides to you, not one, there's two. There's the inner being, and then, of course, there's the physical. So, of course, you have the ear, you're listening, right? But then there's also the inner being. And the inner being, the intuition, that thing that tells you go left, go right, or whatever, that thing that tells you what to do, that's also your ear. And you can kind of read and you can tell if someone's coming at you with a high vibration or a low vibration. You can tell what their intent is based on that. Okay, so there's two forms at work. Now, a lot of people out there don't even realize how much power they actually do have. You have more power than you can possibly imagine. But you don't put it to use. It wasn't cultivated. You didn't learn about it in school, didn't learn about it in church, didn't learn about it at your job, right? Some of you didn't get it from your parents. Some of you did. This is, of course, doesn't apply to you. But for the most part, the average person doesn't get this. Cultivating that ability to know how to read, not just the words, but the vibration behind the words, and patience with the process, right? Listen, process, and then respond. Listen, process, and then respond, rather than just listening to respond. You don't even hear what was just told to you. What was just told to you gave you all the answers to your questions, but you didn't listen to it. You didn't listen with your inner being, and you didn't listen with this, so you missed it. Communication is easy. All you got to do is read body language. It tells you how to communicate. And then you listen to the words exchanged. It tells you how to take the conversation. Sometimes you're going to have to leave the conversation. Men. Sometimes you're going to have to defer to others. Sometimes you're going to have to take a supporting role. Sometimes you're going to have to take a starring role. The starring role, the supporting role, understanding what's going on. For me, I'm mainly a very quiet guy, but I know how to communicate. If I'm with a person that doesn't talk much or doesn't really have much to say, I usually communicate more. If I'm with a person who communicates more, I'm usually revert to my quieter side, okay, and speak when spoken to kind of thing. Look more to kind of provide insight, okay? If I'm with a person who bounces back and forth with me, then I'll be right there. I'll be even with that person. So I can literally adjust to any form, okay? But primarily my personality is pretty quiet. Some of you don't think so because, of course, I'm doing this YouTube stuff and there's a lot of you that wouldn't think so. But I tend to observe more because you observe and you get more. When you observe, you get more information, especially from women. You'll get everything you need to know when you observe. A lot of you know that already. But communication, speaking how you text, this text talk thing, I knew was going to be problematic. When people started using texting for everything, I knew it was going to be problematic. And I can understand it because it's easy. Tick, 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 press send, tick, 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 press send. But then the loss is you don't know tone. You don't know intent. And then you get so used to it, you don't even want to have a conversation. So then when you're trying to meet someone and you're trying to get to know them and you rely on this, it doesn't give you as much information. Okay. And then when you finally meet with that person, you don't even know how to talk. So you went from texting them to go to the meeting, and now you don't know how to talk because you're so used to doing it on here. So you don't necessarily know how to read. You know what I mean? For me, I tend to read. If I'm sitting across from a woman, you know, I read, listen, and then I steer conversation in the direction of the lead. And it's a way of asking certain questions in a certain way, and you get the information that you need. And you can come to a solution or resolution in a matter of 10 minutes. Now, women used to be able to do this. Some of you still do. At one point, women knew how to do this. Within 10 to 15 minutes, they would know and they would make better choices because of that 10 to 15 minutes. They're sitting across the table or you're meeting them, they're conversing, and bam, they got it 15 minutes. Boom, you got a good and more favorable situation. But because of the loss of that, thanks to relying so much on this, now women who typically have the power to use their intuition have lost it. It's almost like their superpower is buried. And then you have the men who are not put in a situation or don't put themselves in a situation to exercise that muscle, because it is a muscle to have the confidence to go up to someone and start a conversation and not worry about whether you're going to be accepted or not. You're not worried about validation. You're not worried about rejection. You're not concerned with that at all. The only thing that you're doing is you're trusting your inner power through the conversation. That's what you're doing. You are completely aware of who you are through the conversation. That's power.